When Mia came back from her mindfulness retreat, I expected her to return with a few scented candles and maybe a sudden interest in kale. What I didn't expect was a laminated system for love. She came through the door like a rebranded version of herself, calm, centered, and terrifyingly composed. Even her voice sounded like it had been ironed. No rush, no spikes, just slow, deliberate peace. She hugged me softly like she was wrapping energy instead of arms. "I feel reset," she said. "Good," I said. "Did they reboot you or just upgrade the software?" She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that comes with silent parentheses, minus 10 points for sarcasm. We hadn't seen each other for 5 days. Usually, after that long apart, she'd throw herself into my arms. This time, she took off her shoes in silence, lined them perfectly by the door, and started unpacking her tote bag with the care of someone arranging a shrine. "Dean," she said finally, "I've learned something important about connection. I think it might help us." Here it comes, I thought, the post-retreat revelation. There's always one. Last time, it was gratitude journaling. We lasted 3 days before the journals became grocery lists. "All right," I said, leaning on the counter. "Hit me with the enlightenment." She took out a folder, actual folder, and opened it with ceremony. Inside was a chart, a literal chart, titled, in elegant font, "Love Points." I stared at it. "Please tell me that's not a performance review." "It's not," she said calmly. "It's a framework for emotional safety." "Sounds like something you'd read in an HR memo," I muttered. She didn't react, just placed it on the counter between us, smooth and serious, rows and columns color-coded, some with plus signs, others with -1s. "What's this?" I asked. "It's something I created at the retreat. The idea is, we build emotional intimacy through consistency, small acts of care that create safety." "Okay," I said slowly, "and where do the points come in?" She turned the paper so I could read. "You get points for emotionally supportive behaviors, staying calm, helping, listening without fixing, and you lose points for behaviors that cause disconnection, like sarcasm, pressure, or deflection." I blinked. "So, I can win at marriage now?" "It's not winning," she said gently. "It's earning trust." I stared at the paper again. It really was a full list. +5, stay calm when she's upset, +10, help without being asked, +15, listen without fixing, +20, show attention for no reason, +25, notice her outfit, +30, romantic surprise, +35, say something that makes her feel seen, +40, thoughtful gift, +50, say, "I want your heart, not your body," and mean it. And then the deduction list, -10. Ask, "Are you mad?" -15. Make a joke when she's serious, -20. Ask for intimacy too soon, -25. Kiss without asking, -30. Compliment that sounds like a hint, -35. Change subject before she's finished, -40. Say, "Be logical," -50. Question the system. At the bottom, one line stood out in bold. Goal, 100 points equals physical closeness, if the energy feels right. I looked at her, trying not to laugh. "Wait, physical closeness? As in, that's the prize." "It's not a prize," she said softly. "It's a reflection of emotional readiness." "So, to earn intimacy, I need to collect 100 love points?" I stared at her, then back at the chart, then back at her again. "You realize how insane this sounds, right?" "It's not insane," she said. "It's structure. It gives me a way to feel safe and you a way to show up intentionally." I exhaled through my nose. "Mia, I'm your husband, not your student. I don't need a scoreboard to remember you exist." "This isn't about control," she said quickly. "It's about connection. You say you never know what I need. Now you'll have a map." "A map to where?" "The land of earned affection." I let out a laugh. It wasn't cruel, just bewildered. So, if I make you coffee, that's plus 10, but if I joke about your podcast voice, I lose 15? She crossed her arms. It's about awareness, Dean. You're making fun of something you haven't even tried. I leaned on the counter, folded my arms too. You're asking me to earn closeness, like I'm your intern trying to qualify for benefits. Her tone stayed maddeningly level. You don't have to see it that way. Think of it as practice, a way to stay mindful. Practice for what? Loving you correctly? For making me feel seen? Mia, I said, trying not to sound angry, I've spent 6 years seeing you. Paying bills, fixing leaks, sitting through your cousin's engagement parties. How many points was that worth? She hesitated, just long enough for silence to stretch between us. Then, in her calmest voice, this isn't about the past. It's about right now. Right, I said, because apparently love expires every week. Her expression didn't break. She looked at me like a therapist waiting for insight to arrive. I want to feel desired, Dean, she said finally. Not obligated. Not pursued because you're frustrated, but because you care. That one hit harder than the chart, because beneath the jargon, there was truth. We had drifted, quietly, like boats untied at night. I'd gotten lazy with affection. She'd gotten cautious with warmth. Maybe this was her way of rowing back. I sighed and rubbed my forehead. So, let me get this straight. You're not saying I don't deserve you. You're saying I have to prove I still want you? I'm saying, she replied, that I need actions that match your words. I need to feel emotionally safe before I can be physically close. All right, I said. But if I'm earning something, it means you're withholding it until I do. She frowned, soft but firm. Not withholding, just aligning. Jesus, Mia, do you hear yourself? I'm not a Labrador waiting for treats. Don't be cruel, she said quietly. I'm trying to fix something before it breaks. That line disarmed me, because she wasn't wrong. Something was off between us. The space, the tension, the quiet nights where the bed felt too big. I'd noticed it. I just hadn't known what to do about it. So, this is your solution? I asked. A spreadsheet for love? Not a spreadsheet, she said. A chart. It's different. I chuckled despite myself. Of course it is. She stepped closer then, her calm composure softening into something more human. Just try it, she whispered. For me. 1 week. If it feels ridiculous, we'll stop. I stared at her, at the conviction in her voice, at how much she wanted this to work. And for a moment, the sarcasm died in my throat. Because beneath the absurdity, there was hope. She wasn't trying to control me. She was trying to reach me in the only language she thought I'd hear. Rules, goals, structure. And maybe she was right. I'd been emotionally tone-deaf lately. Fine, I said, exhaling. I'll play along. But I swear, if you start giving performance bonuses, I'm unionizing. Her face softened. She reached for my hand and smiled for real this time. Deal. I looked down at the chart again. All those numbers, all those neat little lines. Like love could be graphed and audited. All right, coach, I said. Where do I start? She pointed at the first line with gentle authority. Stay calm when I'm upset. Easy, I said. That's at least a plus 10. She corrected me, smiling faintly. Plus 5 figures, I muttered. Low pay, long hours. She laughed then, an actual laugh, unmeasured, unscripted. And for a brief second, I remembered what it felt like to love her without counting. The next morning, the chart had multiplied. It was no longer a single page on the counter. It was laminated and pinned to the fridge like a sacred decree. A neat column for dates, another for notes, and a blank space titled Weekly Reflection. There was even a pen clipped to it with a piece of ribbon. I stood there in my robe, coffee mug in hand, staring at it as the machine hissed behind me. Mia walked in, hair still damp from the shower, wrapped in her light gray robe. She looked peaceful. That new post-retreat glow, equal parts enlightenment and management training. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning, boss," I muttered. "Dean," she warned softly, but with a smile, -15 for sarcasm. "You don't even have the pen yet." She smiled wider, poured herself tea, and gestured toward the mug in my hand. "You made coffee," she said. "That's thoughtful." "Yeah, but mostly for survival." "Still," she said, writing something in the corner of the chart. +10. I blinked. "Wait, that's it? You just add it like that?" "Yes," she said. "It's a small acknowledgement." See how easy that was? "Sure," I said, "if you ignore how weird it feels to get credit for existing." She didn't answer, just smiled that calm therapist smile again and went about her morning. At first, I treated it like a joke. When I left for work, I texted her, "You looked criminally good this morning." She replied, +25, noticed outfit. When I got home that evening, I cooked dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a candle, because apparently ambiance now translated into points. She leaned against the counter, watching me with that same quiet pride people use on toddlers who finally stopped throwing peas. "This is nice," she said. Romantic surprise, +30. "You know, I'm not sure romance counts if it comes with a receipt." "You're missing the point," she said. But she was smiling. I laughed. "So how many points am I at now?" She looked at her little notebook. 70. 70? That's almost honor roll husband. She nodded. "See? It's working." I didn't say it out loud, but part of me agreed. Things felt lighter. She touched my arm more, smiled more, talked softer. Maybe the stupid chart was doing something neither of us could name, forcing us to actually notice each other again. That night, we watched a movie on the couch, her head on my shoulder, the world unusually quiet. Halfway through, she reached for my hand, and for a split second, I forgot the scoreboard. It was just us again. The next few days became a rhythm. I'd wake up early, make her coffee, and she'd say +10 like it was a prayer. I'd unload the dishwasher without being asked. +15, I'd listen to her talk about a colleague without offering advice. +15 for listening without fixing. The system was ridiculous, but oddly satisfying, like playing a video game you secretly enjoy even while mocking it. She'd sometimes stop me mid-sentence and say, "That right there? +20? Attention for no reason." And I'd pretend to keep a mental scoreboard. Dean, 85 points. Halfway to heaven. She even put a sticky note on the fridge one morning. Goal equals 100 points equals closeness, if the energy feels right. With a tiny heart next to it. "Do I get a bonus for exceeding expectations?" I asked. "Dean," she said, "this isn't about rewards." "Then what happens at 200? Do I unlock a hug and dessert?" She rolled her eyes. -15 for sarcasm. By Friday, I had hit 98 points. The air between us felt lighter, even playful. Mia was humming while she made tea, something she hadn't done in months. When she walked by, her hand brushed my shoulder and it didn't feel rehearsed. "That night," she said quietly, "you've been showing up differently. I notice it. Is that worth anything on the chart?" I joked. She smiled. "It's worth me." And it was. For the first time in a while, we were close. Not just physically, but in that silent, safe way that makes the world stop spinning. I remember lying there afterward, her head on my chest, thinking, maybe this crazy system actually worked. The illusion lasted 3 days. On Monday morning, I went to pour coffee and noticed something new pinned under the magnet. It was a new page. Same font, same pastel colors, same irritating calm. But the title was different. Weekly Reset. Let love start fresh. All points cleared to begin the new week. Focus, consistency, not accumulation. Love is a daily practice. I frowned. You've got to be kidding me. Mia walked in behind me, tying her robe. She looked like she was about to lead a guided meditation. "What's this?" I asked, tapping the paper. "Oh," she said lightly. "That's just the reset. Each week, we start from zero." "Zero?" I said. "Like, completely zero?" She nodded, still smiling. "It helps keep things from feeling performative. Otherwise, the points start to feel like pressure." "Pressure?" I repeated. I was almost there. I was 2 points from 100. "Yes," she said, "and it was wonderful." "But love isn't a finish line, Dean. It's a process." I stared at her. "So I do everything right for a week, finally make you feel connected, and then poof, gone?" "Not gone," she said softly, taking a sip of her tea. "Integrated." I blinked. "Integrated? That's your word for erased?" She sighed, but in that calm, patient way that made me want to throw a fork. "It's not erasing. It's about staying mindful, keeping the energy balanced." "Balanced?" I said. "I'm starting to feel like a yoga mat in this marriage." "Dean? No, really. Listen to yourself. You just erased all the progress because you don't want it to feel earned. You realize how backwards that sounds?" She looked hurt for a moment, then composed again. "I just don't want to feel like affection is a prize." "And what do you think this is?" I said, tapping the chart. "You literally turned closeness into a reward system." Her voice trembled slightly now. Not angry, just tired. "You agreed to try this." "Yeah," I said. "I agreed to try, not to live inside it." Silence filled the room, the kind that sits between two people who both believe they're right. She finally said, "You know what I felt last week? Safe. For the first time in months, I didn't have to guess what your mood meant or whether I'd done something wrong. This system gave me that, and just like that, my anger hesitated, because I could hear it, the fear under her control. "I'm glad you felt safe," I said quietly. "But do you understand what it's doing to me? I'm not your husband anymore. I'm your emotional intern." Her face softened. "That's not what I want." "Then stop treating me like someone who needs constant evaluation," I said. She reached out and touched my arm, tentative, almost pleading. "I need consistency, Dean. That's all I know," I said. "But love isn't a spreadsheet." "You can't keep rebooting it every Monday." She didn't argue, just looked at me. Sad, steady, unyielding. When she finally walked out of the kitchen, I stayed there for a long time, staring at the chart. The paper looked innocent, pastel colors, soft fonts, but it felt heavier than a fight. That morning, I made her coffee anyway. No pen, no tally, no score. Just coffee. When she took it, she smiled automatically. +10, I didn't answer. I just walked away. That week, something in me started to turn off. Not out of anger, just exhaustion. Like a switch that finally got tired of being flipped. The chart was still there on the fridge, laminated and smug, staring at me every morning like an Employee of the Month poster. The edges had started to curl a little from the steam of the coffee machine, but Mia would straighten it every day, smoothing the plastic like a ritual. "Careful," I said once. "You'll polish it into sainthood." She smiled faintly. "You're making jokes again." "That's a good sign." "Depends who's keeping score," I said. She didn't answer. By Wednesday, I had racked up maybe 30 points. Apparently, not enough to be close, but enough to maintain emotional consistency, which in this household meant polite conversation and zero sarcasm. The problem was, sarcasm was my love language. It was how I showed affection, how I disarmed tension. Now, every playful comment was a red flag. When she told me about a coworker who didn't respect emotional boundaries, I said, "Maybe give him the chart. Works wonders." She paused mid-sip of tea. -15 for sarcasm. "You actually wrote it down?" I asked, half laughing, half horrified. "Dean, we agreed on this," she said. "If I let things slide, it stops meaning anything." I leaned back in my chair. "You realize how creepy it is to hear your wife say, 'If I let things slide,' while writing in a notebook?" She frowned. "It's not creepy. It's accountability. Right, I said. The romantic kind. Like parole, but with candles. She sighed, long, patient, controlled. You're being defensive. Or maybe I'm just allergic to bureaucracy. Dean! I lifted a hand. Don't worry, I'll take the -15. Add a -10 for tone while you're at it. She set the pen down quietly. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to create awareness. I'm aware, I said. Believe me, I'm aware of every damn point. Over the next few days, I started keeping my own mental tally. Not of points, but of moments I stopped feeling like myself. +1, pretended to care about the lavender diffuser that shifts the energy. +3, bit my tongue when she said I sounded emotionally guarded. +5, smiled during a lecture about presence. -10, forgot to ask about her intentions for the day. -20, said relax during a tense conversation. Total, drained. Mia seemed lighter though. Happier. She loved the predictability. She said she felt seen. And maybe she was. But I was starting to feel invisible. Friday night, I was folding laundry when she walked in with that same chart notebook, cheerful like a manager doing rounds. She looked at the basket. That's really thoughtful, thank you. Should I clock in first? I asked. Or is this volunteer work? Her smile faltered. You know, it wouldn't hurt to try being kind without sarcasm. I kept folding. I am being kind. This is peak kindness. I'm folding your yoga pants. She took a slow breath. -15 for sarcasm. I laughed. Actually laughed. Okay, then -100 for controlling behavior. She froze. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not a lab rat, I said. You can't quantify every breath I take. Her eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed calm. No one's forcing you to do anything. You agreed to this? I agreed to try, I said. Not to live inside your experiment. That's not fair, she said. I'm doing this to help us connect. Then why does it feel like a performance review? She stared at me, searching for a gentler way to phrase something sharp. You're being cruel. I'm being honest, I said quietly. That night we barely spoke. She scrolled through her phone, pretending to read something spiritual. I sat on the couch, pretending not to notice the quiet. The distance between us felt measured, like even silence had a penalty. When we finally went to bed, she said softly, I miss the version of you that wanted to grow. I miss the version of you that didn't need proof, I replied. She turned away. -15 for sarcasm. That time, I didn't laugh. The next morning, I didn't make coffee. Not out of spite, just to see what would happen. She came into the kitchen, stopped by the empty counter, and looked around like she'd walked into the wrong house. No coffee today? She asked. No points today, I said. System maintenance. She sighed. Dean, relax, I said. You can deduct it. Maybe call it failure to perform emotional labor. Do you even want this to work? She asked. Do you? I said. Because it feels like you're more in love with the chart than with me? That landed. She blinked, then turned away, busying herself with tea she didn't really want. For the first time since she came back from that retreat, she didn't write anything down. I didn't realize it then, but that was the beginning of the end. The silence between us wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. I wasn't mad at her. I was just tired of earning permission to be myself. It happened the night we had friends over for dinner. Just two of them, Ben and Laura. People who had known us long enough to remember when laughter came easy. The kind of friends who still brought dessert in plastic containers and called it casual. I grilled chicken, Mia made quinoa salad, and the evening started fine. Ben told stories, Laura laughed too loud, and for a moment it almost felt like before, until Laura got up to grab a drink and noticed the laminated chart on the fridge. Oh my God, she said, grinning. What's this? Mia beamed like a proud inventor. That's our love points chart. Ben raised an eyebrow. Your what now? It's something I started after my retreat, she explained, walking over to it. It's a mindfulness practice for relationships. You earn points for being emotionally present, supportive, attentive. Laura leaned closer, squinting. -50 for questioning the system, she read aloud. Wow. Intense Mia laughed. Yeah, Dean actually asked about that one. Ben glanced at me across the table. You serious, man? I forced a half smile. Apparently, I'm a repeat offender. Mia didn't catch the tone. She was too energized by the attention. The first week was amazing. We actually hit almost 100 points. I felt so connected. She looked at me like she expected applause. And then what happened? Laura asked. Oh, well, Mia's tone softened just slightly. Dean kind of lost focus. Ben shot me a look, not judgmental, just confused. I felt heat rise in my neck. Lost focus? I repeated. You make it sound like I got fired. Mia smiled awkwardly. It's just, we were doing so well and then he stopped being consistent. But it's okay. I reset the chart every Monday. Ben let out a quiet laugh he tried to hide with his drink. Laura glanced between us, polite smile frozen in place. The air went thin. I tried to play along. Yeah, guess I'm not employee of the week anymore. No one laughed. Mia frowned, missing the tension. See? That's what I mean. Sarcasm. -15, I could feel Ben's eyes on me. Pity mixed with disbelief. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. Excuse me, I said, pushing back from the table. Need some air. Outside, the night was cool. Quiet. The kind of silence that makes you realize how loud your house has become. I leaned against the railing, staring at the streetlights. Ben came out a minute later, 2 beers in hand. He handed me one without a word. For a while, we just stood there. 2 guys pretending we weren't watching my marriage slowly turn into a self-help experiment. Finally, he said, You okay? Define okay, I said. He took a sip. Man, that chart. He shook his head. That's not normal. Tell that to her mindfulness coach, I said. I mean it, he said. That's not a relationship. That's a job description. You can't live like that. I know. So why are you? I didn't have an answer. I stared down the street, the buzz of distant traffic like static in my skull. Because it's easier to follow rules than start another fight, I said finally. Ben sighed. Dean, there's compromise and then there's surrender. You're on the wrong side of it. I know, I said again, quieter. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. You're not crazy for wanting peace, man. But this, he nodded toward the house. This isn't peace. This is paperwork. I laughed under my breath. Yeah, love with an HR policy. Exactly, he said. And if you don't set your own boundaries, she'll just keep tightening hers. That line stuck with me, because he wasn't being mean. He was just right. When I came back inside, the conversation had already moved on. Something about travel plans, harmless and shallow. Mia gave me a soft smile, like nothing had happened. But something had. Something cracked quietly inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Just the realization that I couldn't keep playing by rules I didn't believe in. That night, when she went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, staring at the fridge. The chart gleamed faintly in the streetlight coming through the blinds. And for the first time, I didn't see love points. I saw control, laminated, quantified, disguised as care. For a long while, I just sat there, elbows on the table, listening to the refrigerator hum, that low, steady noise that fills a house when words have stopped working. It was absurd, really. I'd never been the kind of man who took rules seriously. I grew up fixing things with duct tape and guessing measurements by feel. But somehow, in this house, I had let love become a checklist. I stood, crossed the room, and peeled the laminated sheet off the fridge. The magnet clacked softly as it fell to the floor. I held the page in my hand. It felt heavier than it should. as if every argument, every apology, every forced thank you had soaked into the plastic. Then I opened the drawer under the sink and slid it in, under a pile of old takeout menus and expired coupons. It made a dry, final sound, the sound of something buried, not thrown away. When I looked up, the fridge was bare, just a small square of clean metal where control used to live. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt quiet. It felt like burying a ghost. For a moment, I just stood there breathing. And then, without planning to, I reached for a notepad from the counter. Same size, same paper, a blank start. Slowly, I began to write. Freedom points plus 500. Say no without guilt plus 800. Choose peace over control plus 1,000. Stop earning love plus infinity. Walk away with dignity. I read it once, then pinned it to the fridge using the same magnet that had held hers. The metal clinked softly, almost approvingly. When Mia came into the kitchen the next morning, she froze. Her eyes went straight to the fridge, to the new page. "What's this?" she asked quietly. "My version," I said. "A reset." Her voice wavered. "You're making fun of me." "No," I said. "I'm finally being honest." She stared at it for a long time, the pen still in her hand, like she didn't know whether to correct it or cry over it. "Are you leaving?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm done keeping score." "I was trying to fix us," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but you can't fix love by measuring it." Silence. Just two people standing in the kitchen, surrounded by all the things that used to mean comfort. The air felt thinner than grief, like truth had sucked out the oxygen. I went to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out my old travel bag. I didn't pack much. A few shirts, my notebook. The hoodie she always said made me look like a college dropout. It wasn't an escape. It was an exhale. Mia stood in the doorway, her voice small. "Where will you go?" "Ben's," I said, "at least until I remember how to breathe." "Dean!" Her voice broke. "I didn't mean to make you feel small." "You didn't," I said. "You just forgot what it feels like to love without permission." She took a shaky step forward. "Please, don't go. We can still fix this." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "If you don't feel safe with me, Mia," I said softly, "then there's nothing left to save." Her tears came fast then. Not dramatic, just quiet. The sound of something real finally cracking. I didn't look back. I just opened the door and stepped out. Outside, the air was cold but alive. The kind of cold that wakes you up instead of numbing you. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a student in my own life. I was just free. A month later, I filed for divorce. No drama, no grand speeches, just signatures and silence. We met once, in the courthouse hallway, two people who used to finish each other's sentences now struggling to find a greeting that didn't sound wrong. Mia looked composed, as always, but smaller somehow, like someone who had been running on rules for too long and finally ran out of ink. She smiled when she saw me, a polite, quiet smile. The kind you give to a stranger you once loved. "You really filed?" she said softly. "I did," I said. "I thought you'd change your mind." "I did too," I admitted. "But then I realized I wasn't leaving you out of anger. I was leaving because I'd stopped existing around you." She looked away, clutching the folder in her hands. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said. "That's the hardest part. You thought you were helping." For a long moment we just stood there, surrounded by people signing away lives of their own. Then she asked, "What did you write as the reason?" "I told my lawyer to put irretrievable breakdown," I said, "but what I meant was, you stopped feeling safe, and I stopped pretending I could fix that." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I hope you find peace." "I already have," I said gently. "I just hope you stop looking for it in systems." She almost smiled at that, almost, then turned away. After the hearing, I walked outside into cold morning light. The air smelled like rain and asphalt, the kind of smell that makes cities feel new again. I didn't feel victorious, just lighter. Ben met me outside the courthouse. He didn't say congratulations or I'm sorry. He just handed me a coffee and said, "So, no more charts?" "No more charts," I said, just breathing. 6 months later, my life looks nothing like it did. I live in a small apartment near the river. Quiet, a little messy, perfectly human. I still make coffee every morning, still fold the laundry, still think before I speak. Habits die slow. But now I do it because I want to, not because it earns anything. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how she's doing. I imagine her still chasing calm, still trying to measure what can't be measured. But maybe, just maybe, she finally learned to sit with the silence instead of grading it. As for me, I'm learning too. Learning that love isn't a reward, it's a rhythm. That peace isn't earned, it's chosen. And that when someone tells you they don't feel safe with you, you can spend years proving them wrong. Or one quiet morning, finally understand that they were never going to. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.